kitchen garden, which is kind of cool. So, we try and incorporate different elements. And then in the kitchen, to try to reduce food waste. So there's a number of different things that we try to do. So, for example, even if you think about it in context of your home environment, so you're making dinner, you chop the vegetables, you have like the little ends of vegetables. Well, we save all of those and we make our homemade stocks and soups. And then we incorporate that into our culinary menus. So what we're trying to do from a culinary point of view is not have food go into waste. And then if it must go into waste, we are now investing in a food recycler. So you'll put your scraps into a food recycler and it turns it into soil. We're going to take that soil, we're going to put it in the garden.
Wow.
So it is very circular.
Yeah.
And then we're eliminating kind of all the compost, in that way.
So one of the conversations, the big conversations we had prior, leading up to this, was economics, just because I think the financial aspect of an environmental green transition is a deterrent, no matter whatever level, even if you're just a homeowner trying to get a solar panel, like it is a deterrent because it's kind of the unknown, not business as usual. So can you talk about some of the cost-saving efficiencies that you've seen with the janitorial service?
Absolutely. It is definitely a misnomer out there that going to green chemicals and being environmentally friendly is going to cost you a whole bunch more money. That's not true. At Scandinavian, not only do we have all green chemicals, one of the ways we've done it is we've also created efficiencies in the way we clean our buildings, in the way we manage waste, in the product we use, in the equipment we use, in the batteries that power that equipment. We've gone to the extra level to make sure that our efficiencies, if there is any additional cost, which there is every year regardless, which we talked about earlier, Laura, that we're able to show with our efficiencies and our programs that we will actually save our customers money while helping them and supporting them, providing the sustainability program through our janitorial services, which we have customers such as yourself, Laura, we can support you and lead. But we also have customers that aren't. And we're experts in it. So if they want to go down an avenue where they want to get those certifications, we're there to help them. We're there to support them. We were just talking earlier upstairs, we just had a event center open this past weekend. They went ahead, they built their event center. We came on as a janitorial provider, super excited. It was a wonderful event. But they did not buy enough garbage cans and they did not think about managing their waste. And so Scandinavian came in after the event, talked to them about waste diversion, talked to them about how many waste receptacles they require in order to sustain that customer infill for that particular environment. And we're able to work together. They're very excited. And now we've already on one event, we're moving forward to help them be a better environment for customers when it comes to sustainability and making sure that their chemicals are right, making sure their equipment is right, and we're bringing a lot to the plate.
And what about the rubber gloves?
Oh yeah, that's my favorite. That's both your favorite too. So I'm really excited about this one. All our cleaners across Canada use a biodegradable rubber glove. Most people don't think that's a big deal, but it's a massive deal. Just like when you go to the hospital and you see all the gowns, rubber gloves is one of our largest items that goes into waste. So about 2 years ago, we adapted into Scandinavian Building Services a plastic glove that is biodegradable. So when you see a Scandinavian staff member, that glove that they're taking off that goes into the garbage afterwards is actually biodegradable and good for the environment so that we are helping the landfills as opposed to creating more waste.
I think that's so cool to hear because this is might be a silly example, but when coffee shops started integrating compostable cups, there was so much chatter just, with friends of cost. Is it going to cost me more? But it doesn't cost anymore.
Well, I can actually say in this one, I get kind of shivers because I'm a dork that way, like we talked earlier. When you talk to people thinking that instantly all the products that we use, or if you go to a LEED building, you're now going to be increasing cost. We were actually able to bring a cost savings while being better to the environment.
A win-win.
A win-win for everybody on that one.
And Laura, can you speak about that with Exhibition Place as well?
Yeah, we look at this as an inherent part of our DNA. So it's just how we operate. And for us, we don't charge our clients anymore for our green recycling program. It's just what we do. How we started at the very beginning, 20 years ago, was that we had a naming partner. And at that point in time, it was Direct Energy who Enercare bought. And that naming deal for us was about $7 million over 10 years. We earmarked 100% of those funds to environmental sustainability. So we started big at the very beginning. And we were able to get, various grants and programs. That's why we have a wind turbine. That's why we have photovoltaics, because we were able to do these pilot projects with those funds. But because we integrated it into our operations, we are actually, trying to offset our dependency on the grid and on utilities and lower those utility bills, which then in turn helps us maintain cost consistency for our clients. So they're also, there's obviously price increases just for labor and all of those kinds of things, but we're offsetting those dramatic increases in utilities by doing these green programs.
I think that's really important to hear. Just in 2025, everything feels light years more expensive than it was 5 years ago. So it's great to hear that that's what the outcome looks like. Now, in the early days, and I'm sure new challenges exist as you keep evolving with your practices, but can you think about any challenges that really stood out that if someone's taking these conversations back to their team that they should be prepared for through your green transitions? We'll start, Candace.
I think the challenge for us is making sure that everybody within our organization buys in, lives it, and breathes it so that we can bring it to the customer. And how we did that at Scandinavian is we actually started a sustainability committee. And when you have your environment of staff, your executive team, right down to the janitorial staff buy into the program, that's when you can make the difference. So I'd have to say it was a challenge, but it ended up being something so incredibly wonderful for the company, because now our thought process with regards to bringing green and environmentally friendly products to our stores goes right from the top down. One of the other challenges that we had, which we've worked very hard on, is, like I said, we create a lot of waste. So we worked with our distribution partners when it comes to deliveries. So I might order 7 different types of chemical and packaging, paper towel, garbage bags, whatever it may be, to a location. In working with our distribution partners, instead of just going through and taking the package of that particular brand, we have gone ahead and worked with them. So when we do our ordering for our customers, they're actually putting as much as they can into one box, so that once we get to the janitor room, we don't have 10 different boxes for a delivery when it really only needed to be 1. So that was a big challenge, and definitely working with all our partners to get on board to show how much it will help. And then, of course, once it gets to customer facing, that's when we're able to continue on with the recycling program.
How big was the committee when you first started it?
Me.
Oh, wow.
But the
You are a nerd.
Yeah, I am a nerd, and I am okay to admit it. It's something that I'm very passionate about. My family's very passionate about. So what we did is I actually started kind of to tag on one another is a sustainability committee and an innovation committee, because innovation also marries with sustainability. They're both very, very important. So on our sustainability committee, we have about 10 right now. And on our innovation committee, we have about 20 people. And the most wonderful part about those 2 committees is we have people constantly wanting to join. And at a point, you can only take so many, because too many ideas sometimes can get a little overwhelming. But it's definitely created a different culture, a different focus. Everybody is very keen on bringing economic value to our customers. It's also increased our analytics for our customers with the committees, because we're going ahead now, we're tracking our water usage, we're tracking our chemical usage. There is no longer locations that we have where if they order chemical, they just get the chemical. They all have dispensing systems so that we can control the amount of chemical that's going into the product that's used to clean the floor. The product is green, so it's environmentally friendly. And then afterwards, we're making sure that we manage the waste and how it's disposed of, and making sure it goes down the proper drainage system.
Yeah, because a baseline is important, right? To
Very
start
important.
with where are we starting and where are we going to go in a year? Where are we going to be in a year? So are you providing the baseline, or is that created when you go in and work with the client initially?
I would say we have our own baseline within our company, but we go with our customer. And whatever they are looking for is what we are there to provide. And then we're there to encourage and help. So we'll go with the customer's baseline, but if we have any other ideas or avenues that we can bring cost savings to them while helping with their sustainability, that's what we get really excited to share with them as well.
Well, yeah, because then it can be transferred from venue size to venue
Yes.
size, right? That's great. Now, are any challenges coming to mind when you think about exhibition place? I'm sure there's a few.
We did very similar exercise. We have a Green Smart Committee, which is, comprised of our staff from all different areas. In fact, we had a couple of our staff actually go for their own lead associate program. So they're our lead associates. They give us guidance on new innovations. I think for us, the challenge was less internally because we all, embraced it very, very easily. It was really our client base. At the very beginning, 20 years ago, it really just wasn't in the forefront of our clients' minds. And they kept thinking we were going to raise prices because we were embarking upon this, green journey. And so a lot of it was communication, a lot of it was education of, how we are going to be doing these green, environmentally sustainable elements and passing them over to our clients in a way that will not increase their prices. And then we started working with them and educating them. So for us, the challenges was trying just to communicate and get that message out there. And we're really pleased to see now that our clients are, putting sustainability requirements in their, for us on the convention side, for example, in their RFPs. So we have to satisfy a number of things, which obviously we do because we're well down the path. But it's an education. So trying to incorporate our suppliers as well. So there's a lot of suppliers who work in venues to try and encourage them to find sustainable ways. And a lot of it is consulting. So we try and consult. We share our information quite freely, and then we're finding that people are joining in. And I think now, especially after the pandemic, when the environment is really becoming in the forefront, people are very eager. And we really do make it easy for them. They literally just have to come into the building, and they are already satisfying so many sustainability objectives. They don't have to do anything. We're already doing it for them.
To that point, you brought up education, and from both sides, you're both working with clients who will likely have requests. And walking around Departure right now are probably so many people, new artists, working with new managers, promoters, who may not be aware of the things they're allowed to ask for. When it comes to sustainability, when it comes to working with an outside partner to go in and do their janitorial services. So what kinds of requests, can you give some examples of what kinds of requests you will see that fall under this umbrella of, a green rider or cleaner, like you mentioned the
Floor cleaning machines.
The floor cleaning machines, right. So I guess we can start from your perspective.
We can start from my perspective. Yep, definitely. If they were going to come in and take a look at Scandinavians, what we provide to the venues, what they would look for us, what we've had is when people come in and they want to look at what we provide, it's the equipment that they're looking at. One of the reasons for that, again, is back to batteries. When it comes to janitorial equipment, one of the most common battery is wet acid battery, which is not environmentally friendly, and it's also, to be honest, if it's not maintained properly, can be actually quite dangerous. So, and that's not a bad thing, that's just how janitorial equipment is, and that's how it has been since the start of time. So we have actually moved a lot of our equipment over to AGM batteries, which are gel batteries, which you can also recycle, and then also to different types of batteries that have a longer life and help with the equipment. So definitely when they come in and they see that, it gives them comfort that we are using batteries that are good for the environment. When it comes to our vacuum cleaners, we use HEPA filters for air quality. Our chemicals are free of VOCs. So it's very important when they come in, they look at that, they know that their air quality, especially as musicians, when it comes to the cleaning products and the cleaning equipment that are being used, the proper filters are there, the HEPA filters, so that we're making sure that they're safe.
But that was a conversation, that's an example of wiggle room, where someone came back and said, hey, actually, this is what I want. And so it's important for, I think, anyone to know that you're allowed to have requests and you're allowed to have expectations. And so what would you see at Exhibition Place?
Yeah, I mean, I think when you look at it globally, I think a lot of the control, obviously the artists are, have a position typically on where they stand as far as sustainability, but their voice is not often translated unless they are of a certain stature. If I think of, Taylor Swift, I think of Coldplay, they have the power to start making, these requests of the venues that are part of their tour. But really, agents, managers, and the promoter themselves, if you're doing a tour, ask those questions. Ask the questions. It's not just like routing. It shouldn't just be routing. Maybe I should put it that way. They should be looking for venues that offer that much more on the sustainability side. And I think you'd be surprised to find that venues will do that. I don't think they're being asked enough. And I think it's a conversation that is beyond, do you have a date? Like, do you have avails? And what your capacity is. So I think those questions are incumbent on the promoter and really in the manager and the agent, because when they're out there looking at a tour, they should incorporate these things in. I mean, you do it already in your rider for catering, right? The craft service, all those things, is already there. You can incorporate that into your request for catering as well, if you want to talk about sustainable, food, eliminating, food waste. You can put that in there, and I think the venues would respond. Yeah.
And I think it's a great opportunity for those that are part of the venues to also showcase what they do, because the venues that are concerned and LEED certified, they're partnering with contractors that are also feeling the same way and have the same values. And sometimes I would say I'm very excited and very passionate about what we've brought to the industry. So if anybody came and asked for it at a music event, I'd be more than willing and excited to show them what we have done.
Yeah, we're super proud of it. In fact, like, we will say to our clients, we'll do a back of the house tour so you can actually see what we do. Yeah. We can prove to you what we're doing. We audit. We have independent audits. We can show you those. For our convention center, we can actually give a client an audit of their event. So they can, everything from energy consumption to waste diversion, and we can give them a little report card that they can take away with them. So I think the question just needs to be asked, and the conversation needs to happen, and it can't, we have to engage beyond, avails.
Then it becomes like a challenge, right? You want to do better every time. You want that report card to be put on the fridge and be proud of it.
And it makes you a better venue, right? It makes you a more desirable location as a venue. If you're routing and you have 2 or 3 venues within that area, maybe it is that little extra that makes you stand out.
Which kind of leads to the next question, which I think is probably one of the most important ones we'll hit on today, the why. The why. Why is this happening? Why is it important? How do you get more venues to buy in? Because I still see venues that don't even have the word sustainability on their website. And it's, if I think about this gathering 2 years ago, it was CMW at the time, now Departure. We were masked because there was an extreme air quality warning in effect because of wildfires across the country. Like, this is in our face. So why? How do we get more people to buy in? Do you want to start us off?
So I'm going to, yes, why not, first of all?
Yeah.
So, when you talk about that, when we had those wildfires and the smoke, so we were hosting Collision Festival at the time. So we had 35,000 people on site for a big tech conference. And because we had, they're called HEP13, the HEPA filters, they were called MERV 13 filters in our convention center where the festival was happening. We were able to shut all the doors and recirculate air. So when you think about a venue, an arena, stadium, like whatever, if it's enclosed, typically what happens is when you bring fresh air in, from the outside, and then you circulate it in the venue, and then then it goes back to the outside, right? You condition it, and then it comes through. That's how you typically control air. So the outside air with the smoke, because it was really, really bad, was worse than the inside air. So we shut off all of our air intake from the environment, from the outside, and we recirculated the air through the HEPA filter to clean the air. So you were in the festival, you had no idea that it smelled like a campfire outside. And and that's environmental sustainability right there. Like, that's something that the venue can do that will affect positively the experience of the customers, right? So, for us, why wouldn't we do that? I mean, it doesn't cost us any more. to have these filters. You have filters anyway in every building, so just make the filters at a certain level. Like these ones are hospital grade, they're a very high level. But you know, we were able to save more than one event because that happened twice, two different years. So we were able to really save an event and save the, you know, the breathing of everyone there. So why would we not make it more comfortable for people to exist? And why would we not be doing things that help the planet and help our future generations? I mean, it really is fundamental, and everyone should be doing it.
Fantastic, well said. Our industry is a little bit different, but when it comes to the why, I love how you just ended that. Why wouldn't we? It has to be, and I think, Sarah, you and I touched on a complete different question when we were upstairs. But for Scandinavian, I would have to say the why is because we have two different areas in our business which we are very passionate about, and the biggest one is culture. And when you have a good culture, everything trickles down. So when you say, why would we want to do that? We want to be the culture of a janitorial industry that cares about the environment, that doesn't want to create more waste. We're looking at what we do and what we bring to our customers, and we're looking in the mirror and saying, okay, we provide an incredible service. We provide incredible culture thought processes when it comes to making sure that all the chemical, the cleaning machines, all that is there. However, we've got the culture, we've got the why, so that we can bring out and say, hey, we're different. We're different in our industry. We're making sure that we are not polluting the landfills. We're actually trying to decrease the landfills. We're taking the environment and the culture with our janitorial staff to understand why it's important to maintain your machine. For us, I know it sounds silly, but certain pieces that go towards the cleaning of the machines, they can go into the landfills really, really fast if they're not properly maintained. I'm actually just going to touch a little bit on one NEOT that we do when it comes to why and culture. Our janitorial equipment mainly isn't recyclable, which we talked about upstairs. One of the things that we do, which we're really proud of, is when we have a machine that needs to be retired, most janitorial companies throw it in the landfill, they turn around and they walk away. We're very proud that we have warehouses across the country and we actually strip the equipment down so that we're able to actually recycle it as opposed to continue to put these large, massive pieces of machinery into our landfills, which we're really proud of. But I want to say why. I'm going to keep going on that question. We also at Scandinavian want to be the leaders in our industry. It's one thing to say you're sustainable. It's one thing to say, as a janitorial business, we practice sustainability, but it's different to show it. We have our analytics, we have our culture, we have our care, we have what we do in the background so that anybody can come to us and say, are you doing this? We have all the documentation, as you said, for your facility to back it up. So the why is we need to be better out there for our environment. We need to protect our industry and we need to protect our customers.
Yeah, and selfishly, I think that the cost saving alone, like your event would have had to have been canceled. Yeah. That inherently then trickles down to you because you're not going in after the event, right? So that in and of itself is a win, and then not to mention with taking care of the environment, that the home that we live on. Yes. Now, there's been a lot of talk about great innovation as well. Is there any, before we get into questions from the audience, is there any innovation or new projects that you're really excited about that you'd like to share? So, Laura, you're nodding your head, so I'll go to you.
So we're working on a program. Again, we're trying to get that carbon neutrality. So we're working on a program to pull energy from wastewater. So, and we're in the very early stages of getting this program put together. It is, so we're going to be, we're trying to go through little taglines with our engineers, and they don't like my tagline, which was powered by poop. They don't like it. I don't know why. I came up with a whole bunch of them. But essentially, we're going to be drawing heat from wastewater to use to help heat the building. And that will, if we can pull this off with the company that we're working with, and we're down that road. We're a municipal venue, so we work really closely with the city and city council. So it's actually going to city council, so that we will. That will bring us down to carbon neutral. I mean, that's how significant it is. so that we can, because, we're a big building, right? You have like 5 million people coming through, and there's a lot of wastewater, so that we can retrofit our system to take advantage of that. And that will literally advance us to that 2050 target.
Wow.
Yeah.
In what timeline ahead of the 20?
Ahead of 2050. Yeah, ahead of
That's great.
2050, which is pretty awesome. The more sustainable you are, and we've been doing this really long time, right, 20 years, so our margins of success are getting smaller and smaller because we've done all of the, the low-hanging fruit, right? We've turned off the lights, we've changed the light bulbs, we've done all the things that a lot of people are starting with now, which is awesome. But now we're getting down to, like, we really have to find this, this last 4,000 cubic tons of CO2. Like, we have to, we're getting right down to the nitty gritty. So this might just get us to the goal line.
Yeah,
Yeah,
now
so
you're
it's
looking for
kinda-
those middle puzzle pieces,
Yeah,
right?
exactly, which is kind of harder because your wins are smaller, like a percentage-wise smaller. So when you start with, waste diversion, for example, you can really get big gains from starting your recycling program, which is super easy to do. I mean, you can, even in the office, same thing, you turn off your lights at the end of the day, you turn off your computer at the end of the day. I mean, these things are small, but they have a huge impact. We've done all those things, so now we're looking at real innovations, like really interesting kind of out there innovations to try and take us to the next level.
Candace, what about you?
For us, I would say we're looking at a little bit more when it comes to robotic cleaning equipment, which is, so I'm all getting there's so many robots in our fleet right now. We're the largest cleaning company that has the largest amount of robotic fleet in Canada. And so that's been a big one from working to lessen the emissions on the cleaning equipment. As my whole brain just got lost there, we're also adding different monitors to our cleaning equipment to make sure that we're managing the emissions that go into the air. So we are holding our equipment actually higher than the manufacturer's standard so that we can ensure the air quality while our cleaning equipment is run. We're also, a new initiative that we're doing right now, although we've changed all our buildings, we've done all the light bulbs, we manage all our water, we do all that, we've put together now what we're working on is, so if somebody comes and asks us what we're doing internally for our buildings, we are now making sure that we can show that to people, and that's something that we're going through, not just doing it, but we have the analytics right now to back it up.
So much accountability. Now, I'm
Yes.
going to do a time check because the clock actually reset, so I just want to make sure we're still on the correct time for questions. What if someone is, I know we kind of touched on this earlier, but if someone is leaving this room going, wow, I'm going to take this back to my team, I'm one person on my sustainability committee, do you have any starting advice for getting those conversations rolling when they go back to their team?
Look around you. I think that's the one thing I would say is look around your environment. As Laura just said, waste diversion is probably the easiest thing that you can implement when it comes to starting off when sustainability. There's so many things when you just look around your regular office environment. What can you do from filtration systems in your buildings? Do you have proper HEPA filters? Are you looking at recycling programs? Have you actually gone back to your janitorial room and made sure that you're using green chemicals? I know it sounds silly, but what kind of vacuum cleaner are you using? Filtration systems on those vacuums are very, very important. When it comes to your cleaning equipment. What type of cleaning equipment and what kind of batteries are you using? People don't actually take time to look into it. So I would say if you're going to go back and start with the why, your office, your work environment expands out to so much more, right down to the event venues, any concert halls that you're going to be looking at. So definitely look around and think about what you can do to start making your life easier, which just then trickles down to committees, looking at your other people that you work with. What do you think about this? We're throwing out pop cans, we're throwing out food containers. Why aren't we recycling them? Why aren't we making the change? And again, chemical is a really, really big thing from my industry, and I think it's really important. If you turn around and look at what kind of chemical processes you're using, that's going to change a lot.
Like an internal audit, start
Yeah.
there, yeah. And Laura, what about you?
I would say just start.
Yeah.
So people get really, it's like that analysis paralysis, right? People get really worked up by saying, well, I have to do all these things and I don't know where to start, so I'm just not going to start at all. I would say start really small. Start with, we're all moving into certainly a more digital environment in the office. Think of what you can do that has an impact, but doesn't have a large commitment, right? And then talk to your colleagues and your coworkers and see if there are any other things that they would like to do, and do little test pilot projects. I think, you know, we've been doing this a really, really long time, and people go like, I'm never going to build a wind turbine, so you know, what am I going to do? But we started with paper recycling in our offices, and what we did was, you know, we have, you know, a recycling bin, right, like trash can. Remember, this is 20 years ago, right, before things were like digital. So we had, you know, like your regular trash can. Well, we made that the recycling bin, and our trash can was about this big, and it hung off the side. And so it was just kind of a reminder to people to be more environmentally friendly. But I would say, you know, really simple things are very achievable and actually have a big impact, right? Water reduction. I would say recycling and waste diversion, which is super easy to do. You can put a compost in your kitchen very easily, just like you do at home. I hope you do at home. And then, you know, talk to your suppliers and talk to your venues, and, you know, and ask them what they're doing and how you can incorporate what they're doing into your program. So, you know, other people are doing things too. So I would just be talking to people. I would be looking around you. I love that. You know, look around your environment and see what you can do to change. But all I would say is start small and look for the low-hanging fruit, and start there, and then and measure it, so that you can see where you started and where you've gone and what your successes are.
And don't be afraid to ask.
Right, ask.
And that's a big thing. Ask, to your point, ask your suppliers, ask your distributors, ask your venues, ask people around you. And if you don't know, go to a colleague, just start the conversation. It's amazing how many people actually want to get involved in this but don't know how.
Yeah.
And it just takes that inquiry of asking and starting small, but definitely the conversation's huge.
Yeah, if you're a promoter, for example, and you know you're going into a venue or a festival, you know, talk to your caterer and ask them how they're delivering food. Like, you know, is everything wrapped in cellophane? Like, is plastic wrapped? Is it wrapped in 5 boxes? Just say, you know, can you deliver things in bulk? So there's just, I think you can put that onus onto your suppliers and onto your partners, and ask them what they're doing. So it's not all on your shoulders. You know, it's a group effort.
And the group effort helps everybody get better. Because the questions, if your suppliers, your distributors, your partners aren't doing it, it's going to encourage them to start, which is why conversation and questions are so fantastic.
Well, that's huge too, because this is a collaboration, right? You're working with suppliers, you're working with vendors, so it's not just on one person, it is a group conversation. So with that being said, throw it to the group to see if there are any questions in the audience here. I think there's someone gonna run over to you with a microphone.
Hi. I guess first of all, I'd just like to commend both your organizations for all that I've heard tonight. I'm curious whether or not, for each of you, whether or not your respective organizations are outliers, and to what degree it provides you with a competitive advantage.
Yeah, I would say we're leaders as opposed to outliers. You know, in the world of venue management, we're ahead of the curve because we've been doing this for so long. So I know I have the unique opportunity to really speak on this around the world and share our learnings with other venues and different organizers and promoters. So I would say we're leaders in the field as opposed to an outlier, and it also depends on what country you're dealing with. So if you are a European venue operator, you're probably just as advanced as we are. If you're American, you're less. And again, it just depends on where you are in the world. I think that has a factor as well. I do have a lot of interest from, you know, American venues wanting to get into a sustainability environment. So they're probably 15 years behind us, I'd say. The Europeans are quite well advanced in sustainability. And yes, it's a competitive advantage, absolutely,
Yes.
100%.
100%. And Scandinavian, I would say, is leaders across our industry in Canada as well. I'm going to say that I'm very proud that our programs are continuously updated, hence the reason the competitive advantage. A lot of our competitors don't. Having a sustainability program that was published 5 years ago doesn't really do a lot. Your sustainability program has to be something that is ever evolving on a regular, daily basis. It's not something that's stagnant. So I would say that we're leaders in it as well, and it gives us a huge competitive advantage, and it allows us to bring lots of knowledge to the partners that we work with.
Oh, yeah, there's one more question back there. Yep. Oh, we'll go here first and then we'll go back there. Yeah, no problem.
Hello, I'm a event management business student, and I just want to say thank you because this was a very insightful conversation. And I have a question for both Candace and Laura. So have you noticed a remarkable increase in positive environmental practices from the attendees as well, from having access to green products such as biodegradable cups, and even having access to diverse recycling options and compost options?
I think a lot of the events listen to their attendees, right? If it might be, they listen to them and then they form their program based on what their attendees' requirements are. If it's a corporate environment, for example, it might be part of their CSR. If it's a festival, for sure, right? People are very interested in making sure that they're leaving the venue in a better condition than them when they arrived. So yeah, we're finding that the attendees are very, they're demanding and they're receptive, and they ask questions. They ask really good questions. It's a lot about that level of communication between the promoter or the organizer and their audience, because as a venue, we don't communicate directly with the attendees, because that's really through the promoter or through the organizer. So if we can educate them, and then they can in turn relate that to their attendee. But yeah, I would say the attendees are becoming more aware, just as we all are, of really what our impact on the planet has been.
And we're a little bit of a different environment because we'd hear from the venue, who of course would hear from the promoters. So definitely though, I would agree, attendees are becoming a lot more knowledgeable and a lot more acute to what's going on with regards to the environment and how we're making sure we manage the waste during an event, after an event, and they're definitely looking at that. But I definitely would say that they are being more cognizant of it, which we hear from the venues after the fact if attendees let people know.
We had a question in the back there.
Yeah, this question's for both of you guys. In terms of like waste diversion and waste separation, I mean, Laura, you were talking about using like a plow to plow up the garbage at the end of the night. What methods do you guys have for separating that? Because yeah, you can have some recyclables, some compostables, but if they get all mixed together, do you separate them by hand, or how do you deal with that? What methods do you have to encourage patrons to even if they've had a couple of cocktails, they might not be that conscious of, and then it kind of throws the whole composting has got plastic in it, now we have to separate it, or it has to go in the trash, or how do you deal with that?
So for us, I'll talk about when a concert or a venue ends. It is labor. It is completely done by people. When it comes to if they've had a couple to drink, you can only control them so far. Unfortunately, that's why you'll see a lot of venues now, they have the bins where you can actually go through and have the 3 different organics, landfill, and garbage, recyclable. But at the end of the day, making sure that it gets into the proper area for waste diversion is going to be the labor-intensive part for where my job comes in and our staff, and then afterwards ensuring that it's brought to the proper areas under the venue. And when it comes to that, it's either managed by bins, or some venues have a separate waste management company that come in and help the janitorial crew get rid of the separations afterwards.
Yeah, it's a great question, because cross-contamination is an issue. you know, at the very beginning when we started this, there was a lot of cross-contamination, and we were doing the same, and we still are doing the same thing. We hand sort. It's a job that is smelly and highly unpleasant. We have a great group of housekeepers who are very devoted. But one of the things that we did was, that's when we leaned on our suppliers, right? So our food and beverage providers. You know, we were trying to eliminate the coated cups, you know, because then they would just contaminate whichever stream you're putting them in, because they're trash. So that's why we moved to compostable disposables, so that we're eliminating that cross-contamination right off the bat, so that when you're getting, you know, your cocktail from the food area, it's in a compostable container. So even if that compostable container goes into recycling, it's still compostable. So it's better than having it as trash going into a recyclable stream. But we do, I mean, we hand sort, yeah.
And as soon as there's a way that you don't have to hand sort, we'll both be on that one right away.
Volunteer at the garbage, at every station, just waiting there and separate, like just making sure that people are putting it in the right thing rather than trying to do it afterwards, because it's almost more efficient that way.
Yeah, when we started the program, because we had these 4 streams, we actually had volunteers standing at every receptacle, and they had a little green smart shirt on, and they were trying to help people put things into the right containers as people were getting a little more used to it. Sometimes when you have a big event and you have, you know, 10,000, 20,000 people, the volume is too much to be sorting on site in that way at source. So that's why we will take those garbage areas, and all our garbage bags are clear, so that when they're pulled out of the recycling bin or the trash bin, we can actually see what's inside, so we know what needs to be sorted. But a volume is a big deal. Like, you know, as you know, when you're at a festival or a concert, everyone's doing everything all at the same time. So it's an after-the-fact sort.
We do have time for one more question if there are any more in the audience. Yeah.
Actually, Sarah, this is a question for you. When you hear that number 2050, how does that feel to you?
Overwhelming in terms of
Like, how is that, like, are you satisfied with the 2050 deadline?
no, I'm absolutely not. Just because I see what can be done in a shorter timeline. And so I think there are a lot of leaders who aren't leading in areas, if I'm being blunt, just a personal opinion here, because I see what can be done on a very large scale. And I'm in my early 30s. 2050 is a long way away, and I see the damage we can open a head, like if you Google climate disaster today, it'll be different tomorrow. So this has to happen now. And on that happy note, I will leave you with a cool anecdote, though. You mentioned Europe, how Europe is very ahead of us. There's this really cool venue, if you haven't looked into it, SWG3. Through the pandemic, thought we have time to really dig into innovation because people aren't coming to our venue. They now turn body heat into their energy. So when they have concerts, when they have events, they're smaller, but they're like exhibition place where they have various assets of their venue. But so when they come into the concert, they have fans that use the body heat that's regenerated into energy. So I just end on that note to remind you that there are different avenues and different projects that you can tinker with, and I hope that through all of the examples you shared that there's some wheels turning. So thank you so much for coming out this morning. And thank you to our panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you to our speakers and to Scandinavian Billing Services for supporting this important conversation. I forgot to introduce myself.